Welcome to Living Chronic, the podcast that explores the realities of living with chronic illness and disability while redefining how we thrive in our personal and professional lives. I'm your host, Brandy Shantz, a disabled veteran and chronic illness warrior, here to discuss the challenges, triumphs, and untapped potential of life with a chronic condition. Before we dive in, please take a minute to hit the subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening. Now, let's change the way we think about disability together. Hi, you're listening to Living Chronic. I'm Brandy Shantz, and I'm here today with Claire Carden. She has ulcerative colitis and has a heck of a great Instagram account. Her mom's a chef, sharing great recipes, great tips on living with IBD. So welcome, Claire.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So tell me a little bit about your journey. When were you diagnosed with ulcerative colitis?
I was diagnosed when I was 17 in 2021, in like the spring of 2021. And I had never really had symptoms before that, but suddenly I was having like a lot of bleeding. And my pediatrician at first brushed it off as like probably hemorrhoids. Not sure why a 17-year-old would have hemorrhoids, but she didn't check. And my symptoms just continued to get worse, and eventually we did find out that it was IBD after I passed out from blood loss and had to be admitted to the ER.
I always love how we finally get our diagnosis after something catastrophic. It's always, no, it's nothing, hemorrhoids, until you're on your way to the hospital.
Yeah. So that was my diagnosis. It was very sudden, very unexpected. We didn't know really much about IBD. And yeah.
Well, I don't think most of us know anything about IBD. I remember asking my doctor, what is Crohn's disease, when he told me I had it. It's a scary diagnosis, especially, with the I don't know factor. Mm-hmm. And it must be additionally so being so young. What did it feel like to go through this at such a young age?
Yeah, I'd never really had any major health complications before. So this was quite shocking for me and my parents. I ended up switching from my pediatrician to like the adult care as soon as I turned 18, which kind of made it even scarier because I was like, when I was hospitalized, I was in the adult ward. I had like adult doctors, and I remember my friend who had cancer at the time. They're cool, they're good now, but they would tell me about like how they saw like a therapy dog in the hospital, and I'd be like, oh man, they don't even let my mom visit me.
Oh gosh, no.
Because it was like COVID time. It was on lockdown.
Yes.
And it was just, the visiting rules were very difficult. So I would say being young and not being in pediatric care was quite scary.
When the COVID timeframe, obviously I had already been diagnosed with Crohn's disease for quite a bit of time, and I had, all my medications, which of course makes you immunocompromised, which made COVID just a bit more difficult. But I remember saying to people all the time, I'm not so scared of dying, but I am scared of going to the hospital and being alone.
Yeah.
Because that's hard. I think everybody who's ever been hospitalized can tell you that having your friends, family, loved ones come in and support you is what gets you through that kind of an event.
Yeah, absolutely. My second surgery, which was in January 2022, which was my Barbie butt surgery, they wouldn't let my parents visit me. Like, it was crazy. And my mom was like, she's like 18, like, let me in. But obviously it's like safety precautions. It's just so difficult on like a human level.
It really is. And I think for many of us, if we ever go through something like this again, and goodness knows that none of us want this, I hope that we have better procedures in place to factor in the human experience, because I think many of us were the same. We were more scared of being alone in a hospital than the actual health risks, which, of course need to be weighed, but, what a scary time.
Yeah.
And especially that being your experience to be diagnosed with Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis at such a young age, it's got to be super difficult. You also had quite a few blood transfusions.
Yeah. So between my like diagnosis in spring of 2021 and my colectomy in winter of 2021, my symptoms just got really bad really quickly. And my most worrying symptom was the blood loss. And I was just losing so much blood continuously that I kept having to get blood transfusions. We tried to schedule them a few times, but usually I would just kind of like pass out and have to go to the ER. And they really jump on you in the ER when your hemoglobin is that low. They're like, we need to get you back immediately. But I hated doing that because then I'm like, they're gonna hospitalize me again. Like I don't want to go back to being in the hospital. So yeah, because my symptoms to start with were bleeding and constipation, which is not necessarily typical of like IBD symptoms. Most people think of the opposite issue from constipation, which I think is why it was a little difficult for me to get diagnosed. And it was just kind of an unusual case, and I was not responding to any of the medication well. I was allergic to Humira, not like on the same level that you had with, I know you had drug-induced lupus, right?
Yes.
But I would get like hives, and it was just getting worse. And I tried other biologics. I was on steroids. I was on, the whole everything. But nothing was working. It just kept getting worse. And eventually they're like, you're losing too much blood, and your colon is in really bad shape, and we just need to take it out.
And, those are difficult decisions to make, but it was so fast for you. Did you feel pressured, or did you feel like, I think this is the right step?
I think that I was just so completely miserable that by the time they said we have to do a colectomy, I was like, thank God. Like, please just put me out of my misery, make me stop having pain, and like let me get back to living my life. Because I was on a gap year at the time, which I had planned in advance, but I wanted to travel, not be hospitalized.
Yeah, there are better gap years.
I do joke that it was like convenient timing, but it was a little bit of a bummer.
No, definitely a bummer. Definitely a bummer. I think most young people prefer to, backpack around Europe, or travel the United States versus go to the hospital and learn the hardest lessons in life real fast.
Yeah. I think another thing that's interesting is that a lot of people live with IBD and have symptoms for many, many years. And I didn't. Like, I was diagnosed and then I had surgery. So I never, experienced being on biologics long term. I'm not medicated anymore because I have an ostomy. And so my experience is quite different from a lot of people.
Well, that is very different. And in some ways, it sounds like a really great option because there's so many side effects that come with the medications. And, many of us have been on multiple ones. I feel like, through quite a range of medications at this point. And for some of us, we really hate the medications. And getting off the medication sounds lovely.
Yeah. I mean, I've been so lucky with my ostomy bag. Like, I really get along with it. I've never had a blockage. I've never really had any complications with it.
That's great.
After I found what products worked for me, it's just been pretty smooth sailing. I mean, obviously, it is something that I have to think about. It's a way that my body is different from most people, and it does affect my daily life, but so does having IBD and taking medication. So it is a trade-off, definitely.
No, yeah, for certain. Obviously, people after my own heart. Another thing I love is you and your mom immediately became involved. And that is definitely my way of coping. That's what I love to do. Volunteer, join a board, get your voice heard, get out there, fundraise, advocate, all the things. I love getting involved. And you and your mom became involved. Your mom is on the local board of the Crohn's Colitis Foundation. where you used to live. You're now away at college, but tell me a little bit about what that was like.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as I was diagnosed, I started doing research because that's just how I am. So I ended up building a lot of knowledge really quickly about IBD and then about ostomies. And I was in these like Facebook forums and stuff, and I would see people asking all these questions. And it just like, it was upsetting to me how little people knew about their conditions and how little education there was for them in the hospital or by any medical professionals, really. So advocacy, raising awareness, and like supporting patients is so important to me because I had to do all my own research. I don't mind that because that's who I am, but most people don't want to or don't have the ability to. And so that's just kind of where my wanting to help comes from. And then my mom is just awesome and like loves me, and she also has her own autoimmune problems. But she's been the chairperson for the Northern California Crohn's and Colitis Foundation Gala the last 2 years and has like helped raise so much money for that foundation, which is amazing. And I'm like really proud of her and really grateful for her.
You know, obviously I believe in it, but I think that that's the way forward. Nobody's going to stand up for you but you.
Yeah.
And your loved ones, right? And I learned that many years ago, many years before I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, and then later my other diseases. But it's true. We have to be our own advocate. Nobody's going to look out for you but you. And most of us are pretty proficient in our personal diseases, challenges, because we have to be.
Yeah.
And what makes us so strong as a group is we each go after what our strength is and contribute and share. And then the others are going after their strength and sharing. And when we're all together, we learn from each other. And it's that group work, that advocacy, that care, that, strength together in numbers to come together and make things better that really gets us through this. And your mom is a chef. So she really knew what to do.
I mean, it's funny because, she says, like, she's a Jewish mother, and she loves, like, feeding people good food. And there I was, like, wasting away, not being able to digest anything. And she didn't know what to do. She was, like, terrified and felt like she was failing in some way. And so when I started doing research into like nutrition and stuff for IBD, and feeling a little more empowered about that and like making decisions about what I was eating, and then bringing her into that, I think that was like a really good bonding experience for us and empowering. And that's why I started that Instagram account, Cooking Through Colitis. It hasn't been so active lately because I have been busy at uni, but I originally started it to share what my mom and I were making for me to eat, because there are so many different diets for IBD, and a lot of them are really restrictive, and you have to be creative to come up with something tasty.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. And for people like myself who are not very creative in the kitchen, these kinds of recipes are everything, because that's all I do is I reach out for a recipe. I'm not going to come up with anything on my own. And if it were left up to just me with no input and no help, I'd just be eating, grilled fish and chicken and, steamed vegetables every day, but not the yummy vegetables, the ones that don't cause tummy upset, and only the IBD patients know what I just said.
Yeah. Yeah, I worked with an IBD specializing dietitian kind of during my transition from being really ill to having an ostomy, which I think was super helpful, because when you have IBD and then if you get an ostomy, there's so much fear around food. In the hospital, the doctors were like, never eat leafy greens, don't eat anything with seeds. And I was like, I really like kale salad. Like, I would like to be able to eat that again.
Yes.
So working with a dietitian who like could help me reach that goal and reassure me that I wasn't going to like injure myself helped me gain a lot of confidence and helped me like get back to eating what I actually enjoy eating.
It's such a big, important part of our lives. Nobody thinks about how much joy food brings us until you're restricted from eating it.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's such a
And
social thing for people too.
it really is. Or sometimes just a comfort thing.
Yeah.
You don't feel well, you're having a rough weekend. Unfortunately, you're not feeling well, you're having a rough week at work, a day, a terrible weekend. Maybe, you were supposed to go somewhere, now you're at home. My pre-Crohn's days, that would include something disgusting, order pizza, drink wine. And of course, if you're not feeling well with Crohn's or colitis, that's certainly not the way to comfort yourself.
Yeah.
So it does bring about a different life. And most people, almost everybody I speak to say the same thing. We're scared of what our life is going to look like with this disease. What does this mean for me now? Because there's never a lot that doctors can tell you because they don't really know what's going to happen next or how your disease is going to progress. And I know it must be even more frightening as a young person, but you really are living life to the fullest. You didn't just go off to school. You didn't just go to a local college. You're not down the road from mom. You're in an entirely different country.
Yeah.
How much bravery does that take? And you are definitely living the life. What made you to decide, hey, I'm just going to pick up and I'm going to an entire different country?
Well,
entire different country.
I'd actually done all my college applications before I got sick. So
smart.
I'd already like gotten into a university in London and deferred for a year because, like I said, I'd planned to take a gap year. And like throughout that year, as I was ill and then recovering, like I was never like, I don't want to go. I was still like, oh yeah, that's my plan. Like I'm gonna get better and I'm gonna go to London. And I did. I mean, I was so lucky. Like I said, with my surgeries, they went well. I'm so much healthier now. I think my parents were more nervous about me leaving than I was. But the whole experience of being diagnosed with IBD and being sick changed me so much, and I think mostly for the better. I have so much more self-confidence now. I can advocate for myself. And I think that really helped me mature enough to like go abroad and live on my own. Because it's just been amazing. Like it's been such a good experience for me. I'm athletic now. I was never athletic before I was ill. But now I'm like, all right, like let's see what we can do with this body after like a near-death experience. You kind of want to like, I know that you're an athlete yourself, right? You ran.
Yes, I was always a runner.
Yeah.
Which, that did change for me, but I have diseases on top of diseases, so I did still run and do triathlon through my Crohn's. So it's amazing what your body can do, and I think you're right. Going through these kinds of events in your life, it really does give you a boost of confidence to say, hey, let me out there, I can do it.
Definitely. Yeah, I do. My like main hobby now is circus arts, so I really enjoy like aerial silks and stuff like that, and just kind of seeing what I can do. And then I go to uni for costume making, which is great and creative, and I have a ton of friends here, and it's been great.
Do you have any plans for what you want to do with costume making?
I don't know. Like, people keep asking me, are you going to stay in London? What are you going to do?
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know. The more I put down roots here and make friends, the more I want to stay in London. And same with, like, professional connections as well. That's all happening here. I'll likely work in theater for a little while, since that's really what we're trained to do on my course. But I'd love to branch out into like circus and burlesque costume at some point, because I'm really interested in those areas.
Yeah. I really love that. What better way to really show people that it can be done? I think so many people just think, well, I have IBD, especially if it's something severe, We have a range, just like everybody does. Yep. There's a range from manageable take your meds, move on with your life, to hospitalizations, bleeding out, blockages, all the things you've talked about that we've heard about on this podcast a million times. And when you're going through that, you think, no, I don't think I can go any further. But you're really showing that you can do anything. It's no problem. New body, new life, moving forward. And I really love hearing that, and can't wait to hear more about what you do next.
Thank you.
With this kind of a skill. I mean, maybe one day, I don't know, maybe one day I can convince you to work with me. I need some better clothing for POTS. I look for medical grade compression, and it's everything that my grandmother used to wear back in 1985. And I'm like, no, why, no, why? I'm not wearing that.
Oh, yeah. Adaptive fashion is a huge interest for me. I have worked a little bit with the company Spoony Threads on like giving feedback on some of their ostomy products, which was super fun.
That's awesome.
And I absolutely agree. Like, we need more fashionable, adaptive.
We really do. Like, why do we all have to look like our grandmothers? I don't want to do that.
Yeah, I've been
I'm
getting
still youngish.
into like fun compression socks lately, and but yeah, so I'd love to do more with that in the future.
Yeah, definitely. Compression's my world, and I am so sick of medical grade compression being the ugliest things you can possibly imagine.
Yeah.
Ever. So I'm even more excited that you're doing this. So you've done so many great things. You've really overcome. I talk all the time about how what people miss about disabled people is that we're so resilient, we're so malleable, ready for change, we can take on anything, and you're just living the example. I can talk all day long, but seeing somebody like you pivot and say, it's fine, I got it again, that's the living proof. So what advice would you have for other young people who are going through this and thinking, how do I deal with this?
I would say having a good support system is so important. If you don't have people physically in your life that can relate to what you're going through, I absolutely recommend like reaching out online. I made some really great online friends when I was ill, mostly through like Facebook forums and stuff. And then I also had, my high school librarian was like my hospital buddy throughout my illness. She has Crohn's disease, and we just became really close and could just like complain to each other and like get it. And then of course my parents are amazing and supportive. A lot of my nurses were like so sweet and supportive. And I mean, a support system can look different for everyone. It could be like a religious community or like any friends or family, but I think that's so important. And don't be afraid to ask for help from those people. I think it can be scary, but like independence and like doing your own research is so important. I know a lot of people get ostomy bags and they just don't want to touch it. Like, they'll have a spouse or a caretaker change it for them, and that's like okay if you're planning to stay home all the time, but if you do want to like get back up and out there, you have to be able to deal with your medical situation on your own and know the details about your disease or your conditions.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
You have to get through a lot, really. Squeamishness, blood, injections, ostomy bags. There's a pretty long list that, we may or may not have to get used to. And yeah, that is important. It's good advice. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm so appreciative you came. I love everything you're doing. And it's just so important to show people that there are chronically ill people out there living their best life. Your life isn't over. You're better than you were before, whoever you are 2.0, and you're proof of that.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me on.
That's a wrap for this episode of Living Chronic. I hope today's conversation gave you insight, inspiration, or at least a little reassurance that you're not alone on this journey. Living with a chronic illness or disability comes with its challenges, but it also comes with strength, resilience, and a community that understands. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. You could follow me on Instagram at Chronically Brandy Shantz, other socials at Brandy Shantz, or my website at brandyshantz.com for more discussions, advocacy updates, and everyday strategies for thriving with a chronic illness. And if you have a topic you'd like to hear about, send me a message. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep pushing forward, keep advocating for yourself, and remember, you are more than your diagnosis. You are powerful, you are unstoppable. Thanks for listening to Living Chronic. See you next time.